or a jockey like Gary Stevens, who joins us now. Gary, good evening.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Outstanding, and always happy to talk to you. And this occasion, of course, we're talking about stars of the game, and you left the stage a star, and you've come back to the stage and reignited your star. Gary, the story continues to unfold with the Breeders' Cup 10 days away. It's one of the best stories in all of sports.
Well, I can just tell you that a year ago, right now, if somebody would have told me that I was going to be sitting in the position that I'm sitting in and not doing the NBC telecast, that was a pretty good spot to be sitting in at this time last year. But I'm in even a better position right now. 30 years of Breeders' Cup and, me several years of Breeders' Cup, I'm probably best aligned right now. Touch wood, and I am touching wood, to win more Breeders' Cups, in about 10 days than I've ever won in my career.
Well, and of course, you look at the list of wins in the Breeders' Cup, and you would have thought that list wouldn't be augmented. But of course, at the same time, nobody would have thought, as you say, nobody would have thought you were going to add another Triple Crown win to the incredible list of successes in the Spring Classics either. So when you look down and think about the wins in the mile with War Chant and DeHaas, and you think about Silver Bullet Day, and of course you're doing a lot of riding for Tom Proctor, and there was the great upset on One Dreamer. Give us going in your Breeders' Cup memories that stand out to you.
Well, obviously my first win in the Wings in 1990. It took me a long time to win that first $1 million race, and happened to be in a Breeders' Cup race. And I remember my dad, Ron Stevens, calling me up the morning of, and I'd had a number of seconds and thirds in Breeders' Cup races. Dating back to 1984 was my first one with a pretty good filly named Got You Running. That was my first introduction to Angel Cordero. I about hit the ground crossing onto the main track that day at Hollywood Park, and it was a beautiful day and a great start to the Breeders' Cup. But looking back on it right now, and a lot of good luck with a lot of tough beats, and to have in the Wings, and Sheikh Mohammed having his faith in me, and a big supporter of me from the mid '80s to win for him, and to finally get that first $1 million win and happen to be the Breeders' Cup turf. It was a pretty good feeling.
Looking at this list, and I've got all the Breeders' Cup board hits that you've had, and Jerry Bailey was with me last week, Gary, and it just happened that you came up and we talked about the relaunch of the career and the resumption. And when I knew that you and Mike Smith were going to join us tonight, I started looking for occasions where you and Smith may have been head to head at the wire, but in Breeders' Cups. But I can't really find one. There were a lot more of those with you and Bailey.
Yeah, there were a lot of them with myself and Jerry, and a lot of fond memories. And one of them I was looking most forward to was in 1995 when Jerry was riding Cigar, and Thunder Gulch was only a 3-year-old, and I couldn't wait for the Breeders' Cup. We'd won the Travers, and we ran the Jockey Club Gold Cup, and that was the race the day that Thunder Gulch broke down. It was his last race, and I really felt like he was a horse that could have got the job done that year, and it wasn't to be. But I think with what you just said, you can't think of too many of Mike and I coming down to the line. But I got a really, really good feeling that you're going to see a race for the ages in the going back this year, the title of the Distaff instead of the Ladies Classic with Royal Delta and Beholder. I know that Royal Delta, there's no one has any more respect for her than me as a fan, and covering her for the last couple of years, and watching her this year, and now me writing Beholder, and Mike came out this morning and watched Beholder work. He just kind of kicked the ground. He says, "Oh man!" And I said, "Yeah, it's going to be a good one, isn't it?" So,
well, she worked great today, I understand.
Yeah, she worked awesome.
Let me bring Jeremy Plonk in, and the questions are piling up as well, Gary. So let's turn to Jeremy first. Say good evening to Jeremy Plonk and hook up with Gary.
Gary, good to talk to you, buddy. I'm good. This time last year we were putting stats together, huh?
Yeah, we're talking all over each other right now. It's good to hear from you, Jeremy.
Gary, we're talking about the stars of the game tonight, and you rode in probably the most star-studded Breeders' Cup Classic ever, and for my adult lifetime, the greatest race I've ever seen, and some experts may agree or disagree with that, but the 1998 Breeders' Cup Classic at Churchill Downs, from top to bottom, Awesome Again, Silver Charm, Swain, Victory, Gallop, Coronado's Quest, Skip Away Sixth, Running Stag, Touch Gold, the Belmont winner, Arch and Gentleman, a multimillionaire at the back of the pack. Was that the best race you ever rode in, top to bottom?
Yeah, I think so on paper, definitely so, and unfortunately, watching the other night, NBC Sports Network, Breeders' Cup 30 most best moments, and Mandela asked me this morning, he said, "Have you ever won a Breeders' Cup race?" I watched that thing. He said, "You were second and third and a whole bunch of those," and I just started laughing. And, let's put winning colors into perspective with the great Person Linson beating her a nose, but toughest beat I ever had was that Breeders' Cup with Awesome Again, and me running second on Silver Charm, and Swain on the outside. And, I mean, it was stacked. That was a great field. Definitely one of the greatest fields we've seen on paper in the last 30 years.
Let's take a couple questions from our chatters here in the Night School audience, folks from all over the country tuning in the chat tonight. For those of you listening on Sirius, you can get online at any of the 40 websites, horseplayernow.com, among others, and submit your questions for Gary as well, and Mike Smith and John Campbell later. Let's go first. Lester asked a question, and we get this a lot from jockeys, but I'd like to hear your specific answer to this. How difficult is it to maintain your weight, and what are your preferred foods and supplements that you eat and take to try to maintain that weight figure that you're at, and what weight are you carrying these days?
Well, I keep hearing every morning when I walk out to the racetrack, the work horses. On the mornings I do work horses. People just say, "Man, you look fitter than I've ever seen you in your life." And I just smile and I say, "I'm fitter than I've been in the last 20 years." And what I figured out at age 50, I have to work harder to stay fitter, and that's the edge that I take right now. It was very easy for me when I was younger, and it's not so easy now. And I'm on a high-protein diet, eat some peanut butter, to give me some energy. But I don't eat a whole lot, and I'm very lean right now, the leanest I've been, and that causes me to be very flexible. And I feel like I did when I was 17, 18 years old, as far as sitting on the thoroughbred's back, and it's a good feeling.
Let me pick up.
We've got some more questions, Breeders' Cup-wise. Do you want to take some of these, Steve, or do you want to move it another direction?
No, we can mix and match them. And Joe Christopher actually had two-part question, Gary, that really is probably timely. And you've had the advantage of this career renaissance, and Joe's asking about the difficulties involved with the decision making and the maturity process when you're successful at a young age in this game. You bring up the fact that physically you're feeling good, but it's obvious that your experience level is making the big difference, because as fit as you are at 50, it's not comparable to the strength and fitness probably that you had 20 years ago. So your intelligence and your understanding of where to be on the racetrack and all the little nuances. Talk about the career perspective aspect for players and fans to appreciate.
Well, one of the big things that my agent and I, Craig O'Brien, think about are the number of races that I ride per week, and I would prefer to think about 2 or 3 races a day on a normal basis, weekly basis, rather than focus on 9 races. And if you're a young rider, you're trying to ride as many as you can every day. And it's hard to focus on the good horses and just concentrate and tone in on those particular races. And that's the advantage I have right now. I know what I have coming Breeders' Cup weekend. Those are 9 Breeders' Cup races that I'm riding that I've already ran every race in my head tons and tons of times. And I'm pretty sure who's going in every race. And so I have that advantage. And when you're able to concentrate on, that number of mounts and prepare for it, 3 weeks out, it's a big advantage.
Jeremy?
Yeah, Gary, we've got a fan, Brian, who's asking, just right along you're talking about there, setting these races up in your head in the Breeders' Cup. Mucho Macho Man is a horse who likes to get into the race early, and Brian's saying with a big horse like that, how do you get him into a comfortable position with that big stride that he has, and where do you hope to be the first quarter mile or so of the Classic on Mucho Macho Man?
Well, I told Kathy Rippo this morning that it's been a long time that I had a horse go into the starting gate going a mile and 8 at Santa Anita drawn on the outside that wasn't focused at the grandstand. He stuck his nose in the V of the starting gate like a quarter horse and left there like a quarter horse. For a big horse, he's athletic like Point Gibbon, Rock Hard 10. I mean, he leaves there. He puts you in the race. And he switches on and off like a light switch. And I turned him on and off 5 different times during that stake race, the Awesome Again. And I'm like, holy cow, are you kidding me? And that's what separates the great horses from the mediocre horses, is being able to do that. Most horses won't do that. He does that. And he's very athletic for a big horse. He'll put me in the race. And you guys, right now, with me talking, I mean, what do we got? Gradar, Fort Larned, and Game On Dude. That's a lot of speed we're looking at, boys. And I can't tell you where I'm going to be. I won't be far away, but I'll be in a good spot.
Interestingly, Gary, there's probably a complete reversal of where you and Mike Smith, and maybe when Mike joins us at the top of the hour, you guys can spar a little bit. But Mucho Macho Man most likely going to be stalking from up close to Game On Dude with Smith, and then though on Friday it's going to be reversed, you would think, with Beholder probably being chased by Royal Delta, and so a little bit of cat and mouse from the two active leaders among the Breeders' Cup earnings and Breeders' Cup wins, the two of you.
Well, we started sparring yesterday at lunch a little bit about the distaff and trying to fill each other out a little bit, and he came out and watched Beholder work today. And I'll just tell you, at the end of the day, we're not going to expose too much. It's like two poker players that are holding aces. We both think we've got the fourth ace, and we know one's missing. We're only holding 3 aces, but each of us thinks the other guy's got the fourth ace, and that's how we're playing it right now. And that's pretty much what he's going to tell you too. I think it's like two brothers that are going out hoping for the best, but we're gonna try and beat the little brother at the end of the day.
Gary, I've got you, in addition to the Classic and Distaff mounts, I've got you on She's a Tiger in the juvenile fillies. I understand you're going to ride Starship Truffles from Marty Wolfson in the filly and mare sprint. I know the marathon, old time hockey, and then for Mandela on Indy Point in the turf off the nice win. Who else? You mentioned 9 mounts. What other 3 are you on?
Well, I've got Caracatado in the sprint, turf sprint. And as far as old-time hockey, I've got to correct you. I'm not riding old-time hockey in the marathon. I am riding the Argentine horse, Ever Rider.
Okay.
Worked him out at the gate yesterday. I've had a couple of breezes on him. Very nice horse. Not going to show my hand too much about any of these horses that I'm riding. I'm just telling you that we're excited right now, and I wish that the Breeders' Cup was this weekend. Again, I'm going to touch wood. It's good times right now, and good horses and good people that that have come with us. We picked up. Hey, what's the horse in the turf? I've got Craig O'Brien sitting across from me right now.
Perfect.
Got shades for Danny Pish, who was third in the prep race out here at Santa Anita, and had a little bit of trouble. And horse that has some speed, that is very, very tractable, and we're in good places right now with some of these horses.
Gary, can I ask you a question about the Argentine that you worked? Last year, it was a little unconventional. They brought in Kaleidoscopio without a saddle. I take it you did not work bareback yesterday.
No, I haven't, but he gallops without a saddle every morning. Lotta Beach, who is Brian Beach, the agent, his wife, gallops the horse. He's in the same barn as Kaleidoscopio was last year with Mike Pipey. They followed the exact same routine as Kaleidoscopio did last year. He's been in here for about 5 months right now. He's acclimated. He won the same prep race that Kaleidoscopio did last year. And there's one major difference is this horse, Everrider, goes to the front, whereas Kaleidoscopio, you saw in the Brooklyn, you saw in the Breeders' Cup last year, he came from 40 out of it. This horse, I worked him out at the gate yesterday morning, and he leaves the gate like a quarter horse. His belly dragged the ground leaving there, and he's fast, he's quick, and he's got a lot of stamina. And I'm letting out the best-kept secret in America right now, since everybody that's tuning in to you guys, Mr. Vic,
I love it.
He's a proper horse, so I'm letting the secret out a little bit right now.
Well, and he's also dropping probably 17 pounds or so from the General Belgrano when he ran last at Argentina. Let's take a quick timeout. We got Gary Stevens. Mike Smith's going to join us. We're going to put them on together. Night School on At the Races continues here on Sirius. We're back on Sirius and back with Gary Stevens, and not just Gary now, but joined as well by fellow Hall of Famer Mike Smith. Mike, good evening.
Good evening. How are you guys?
Well, I'm great, and it's a rare opportunity to let players and fans listen to the two of you, and maybe a throwdown between Stevens and Smith about what's ahead here 10 days out from the Breeders' Cup, Mike.
Sounds like a plan.
Gary, say hello.
Mike, I already told him, I said, there ain't going to be no throwdown right now. We both think we're holding 4 aces, and we're not showing who's only holding 3.
We're not
going to leave it at that.
We're trying to keep our best poker face on right now.
Mike, we just went through a number of the mounts that Gary's lined up. It is amazing, and a testimony to both of you that at this stage, you're among the best mounted riders, coming into this Breeders' Cup, and guys virtually half your age having to play catch up. I've got you with, of course, Game On Dude and Royal Delta, but boy, how about the 2-year-old maiden sensation for Baffert, Tappet Rich, points off the bench, Tim Yaktine, and I would imagine, Gary, how does Yaktine have him on points off the bench? You must have been in the same camp when Yaktine was working for Baffert.
Yeah, I was, but Mike's done a lot of business with these boys in the 7 years that I was away, and made up a lot of time on me. And I think Mike's pushing 53 right now instead of 48, as he says. But he's riding. I mean, this is fun for me to watch right now, Mike, and I know he's enjoying. And we're kind of pushing each other a little bit right now. And some of these young guys, when we come back in the room, they just look at us like, what the hell just happened? It's kind of fun. It's fun.
Mike, in addition to points off the bench, is Mean, Easter Gift, Little Mike, and, of course, Misdirection may be among the best set of mounts that anybody's going to have come next Friday and Saturday.
We got some very, very live ones. I mean, I wouldn't trade places with anybody, as Gary probably wouldn't with anybody as well. We're both very confident in the horses that we're riding, and you just hope for the best. I just hope for the best, that each one of us gets a good trip, and may the best horse win. And that goes for anyone in there. But that's all you can ask when you get in situations like this. You just want give your horse the best opportunity, and that's what they pay you for, and that's what you're out there to do, and you just got to be good enough after that.
You know, Mike, when Gary was working his way toward this return to the saddle, he talked about watching you these last several years and watching how you were managing your career, and that he wanted to base his return on what you were doing. And I know he talked to you as well going into this. Talk about what you've been impressed with as you've watched Gary this go around.
You know, to be honest with you, man, I was, because some people would say they had their doubts, but I never did. I've just always believed in Gary, with with all my heart. He's not only my friend, we're like brothers, but really looked up to him as a rider. Love the way he rides. Like I said, we're very close on top of that, and yet we're so competitive with each other, but he just seems to bring the best out of me. I mean, he really does. So I was probably the happiest of anybody that he came back, because when you get the opportunity, it's like playing with Michael Jordan. He's going to raise your game, and that's what he does for me.
Gary, well, and Gary react to that, and when you watch Mike, it's a long time now. I mean, you guys have been watching each other from different vantage points for 3+ decades.
We trade a lot of information over the years on not necessarily at this time of the year when we're going for the big bucks and these major league Breeders' Cups, but off season a little bit. Hey, what'd you do on that horse? And trade some secrets and try constantly learning. Constantly. And I think that's one of the things about what we do and some of the younger guys. I don't know everything. I'm still learning every day. When I went out on Beholder today, I learned something different again today. And to be able to absorb that, and that's what I feel with Mike Smith, the same thing is him absorbing information and watching film the same right now as he did in 1985, 1986. He's doing it right now in 2014. I'm trying to do the same thing.
Got to ask you both, and tonight's theme is stars of the game, and the two of you are as big stars as there's been in the last century of race riding. And Gary, this situation has opened, when it comes to Twitter, for instance. I know that you've had some frustrating dealings with the public. Talk about the obligations of being a star, of being one of the major, faces of the last 25 years in this sport.
Well, hey, look, there's a lot of people out there. I think it's important that we make ourselves handy to the fans of our sport, to give more exposure to our sport. And there are a lot of people out there that think they understand things the way we do, that haven't been around so long, and they frustrate us. And I'm an athlete, I'm a competitor, and yeah, some things upset me a little bit. And it's very easy for me to hit the block button now, just hit block and forget about it. Don't argue with some of these people. A lot of them have good points, and when they do have good points, and I think Mike's the same way, we admit when we've made a mistake, say, man, I rode a bad race, I made a mistake, but don't make the same mistake twice. And that's what I've tried to do since I started my career. And I know Mike does the same thing. And the people, fortunately, that Mike and I ride for, they understand that about us, that it's okay to make mistakes. Just don't make the same mistake twice.
Mike?
I totally agree. And one thing about me and Gary is we still think that we have something to prove. I mean, you think we're a bigger star than what we do. We still think that we got a whole lot more room to grow. We just keep challenging each other and keep trying to get better and better. And a lot of times we don't realize that people look up to us kind of that way. I mean, we're just trying to do the best we can, and we're trying to figure it out as we go along. And that's what keeps us going. That's what keeps us competitive and going. I think once you think you got it all down, that's when you realize that you don't, and it's time to give it up, But I just think that we both just keep learning, and we just keep trying to get better off each other and off of our mounts, and just off of watching these younger riders. I mean, we learn from these younger guys as well. I mean, we never stop learning. I know me and Gary talk about that quite a bit, so I know he feels the same way about it.
And I imagine, for the most part, the interaction and the interplay with the public is almost uniformly, almost certainly positive, 9% of the time. There's going to be people in and around the game that get frustrated with losses. I mean, when there's money involved, it can trigger frustration, certainly. But one of the unique things about this, there's plenty of people who have hit golf balls and have played baseball and football. There's very few people out there that are criticizing race riders that have actually been on a horse and have any possible understanding of what's happening out there.
Well, like the great Bum Phillips said, listen, we're all going to lose. He said, but when you start to, he goes, you're not a loser till you start blaming other people. So that's a great football quote that I remember off of what he said. You're not a loser till you start blaming other people and doing this. But we're all going to lose, man. You got to lose. That's sports. That's part of it. You got to learn how to take the good with the bad.
And of course we lost Bum Phillips just the other day. I think over the weekend, right?
They were talking about him a lot, and I was listening to a lot of his quotes. He had some great sayings, and that's one of the things that he said that really stuck into my mind. That's true. We're going to lose. It's just part of it. I mean, if you're winning at 20% in this sport, man, you're doing really well. So you imagine you're losing, 80% of the time. You're not a real loser until you start blaming other people.
I love it. No, there's a good one, Gary. For you too, right? I mean,
and that's hard to take. I mean, really, if you're winning at 17% of the time in this game, it's like batting 300 in the majors, and that's huge during the playoffs. And if you look at what Mike's done this year, riding at the level of races, he's day in and day out riding in, and the percentage, he's hitting 500 right now, man, at the highest level, and that's something to respect. But that means even at 500, you're losing half the time, and it hurts. That 500% of the time that you're losing, 50% of the time you're losing, or 80%, it hurts way more than the 20% that you're winning at.
It's like no other job in the world, and Gary, we'll let you go, and we can't wish you enough good luck going forward, wading into the Breeders' Cup action, and looking forward to getting there Saturday and spending Breeders' Cup week at Santa Anita. Great Hall of Famer Gary Stevens, thanks so much.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing you guys out here, Mikey. I'll see you in the morning.
See you tomorrow. I wish you the best always. You know that in the Breeders' Cup. If I can't win, I certainly hope that you do. Most of all, I just hope that we come back safe.
Love you, bro. Bye.
Love it. There it is, Gary Stevens. And we'll continue with Mike Smith, and we'll get Jeremy Plonk back as well. And, Mike, I couldn't resist the chance to have the two of you together for a little bit, because knowing what you've helped Gary do with this return, I say it to him, and I've said it to him now a few times over the last 6 months. It's one of the most remarkable stories in sport the last several years.
Well, I mean, to come back at his age, at 50 years old, and the way he's riding, I swear to you, he's riding like he's in his early 30s. Maybe it's crazy. I mean, he got himself fit. You say that I helped him. I really didn't do anything. I mean, I was just his friend there to maybe motivate him a little bit. But other than that, man, I mean, he's just done it all, and very proud of him. I mean, it's just he couldn't be riding at a higher level right now.
Well, and we had Jerry Bailey the other day, and I, you could hear in Jerry Bailey's voice. I hear it when I talk to Rich Migliori. They're watching you guys, and it's tearing them apart. This is one of those unusual sports. It's one thing in baseball and football, when you reach a certain age, your body just won't allow for the opportunity to continue your career. career. The time passes athletes by in most sports. This is one place where if you stay fit, then your mind becomes as big an asset as it might not have been early when you were counting on your physical prowess.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, if you can just keep your legs and stay fit, the experience just is incredible to have. I mean, especially in these types of races and these bigger races, when the money's down, it's they're high pressure situations. I mean, experience just really, really pays off in these kind of situations.
Well, and Jeremy Plonk is back with us. Jeremy, I know I went a few extra minutes, but couldn't resist letting the two of them talk about their mutual respect and everything that's about to unfold at Santa Anita for the 30th Breeders' Cup.
Well, I was enjoying it, guys. I had my feet up on the desk and was just sitting back and listening and learning. Like Gary said and like Mike has said here, you learn something new in horse racing every single day, and that's one of the greatest things about this sport, whether you're a participant in the handicapping world or a participant as a jockey or a trainer or an owner. There's something to learn every day, and that's really fascinating. Mike, we've got some questions from the fans here that were watching on the live chat, and one of the questions I think is really pertinent for you because it asks, what do you prefer style-wise, a horse who goes to the front or a horse who comes from behind, and what are the challenges of riding those two different styles? Because you rode two of the all-time great mares with different styles, Royal Delta, who you're going to ride in the distaff, who goes to the front, and Zenyatta, who came from absolutely out of the clouds. Which one do you prefer to ride style-wise, and how do those styles differ?
I like to ride the style called a lot of talent. Rather that's talent on the front end or talent from coming from behind. As long as it's called talent, as long as they have talent, you have to have talent in there. And getting the opportunity to have ridden, for many, over the years, and getting the chance to ride, numerous types of styles of horses have. I mean, you just get better at it. Some people seem to think I'm better on the front end. Some people think I'm better from behind. I kind of like that because that means I'm more well-rounded. I might not be the best at any of them, but I try to be as well-rounded as possible,
And for you coming up on the Breeders' Cup, you look at your menu of mounts, and which ones do you have the biggest circles around? A lot of our fans have asked, to see which ones are you most pumped up about riding. I think obviously Royal Delta's got to be at the top of that dance card.
Without a doubt. Either the two classic Royal Delta, Game On Dude, coming back from misdirection. I'm really happy with it. My sprinter points off the bench. He's got incredible talent. I got to ride Little Mike the other day and to win on him. He's a repeat winner as well. A horse that could be a repeat winner anyway. I mean, I'm getting a chance to ride three horses that won last year's Breeders' Cups. So I'm riding some each and every one of them. And when you get to this caliber of races, they're all so important.
Mike, you mentioned the three winners of Breeders' Cup races, and of course Royal Delta and Misdirection you were on, but the third one is Little Mike, and it's really an amazing story because going to back to the Joe Hirsch at Belmont last month, and the way in which you utilized video and watching Ramon Dominguez and the way he handled the reins on Little Mike. Explain to everyone what you needed to understand about Little Mike to get the most out of him and make him really a contender in this spot when maybe a month ago no one thought he could even get back to the Breeders' Cup.
Well, first of all, just to see him get back on track is great because maybe this is going to put him, back as maybe as good as he was last year, maybe even better. I mean, that was a great bunch of horses he beat in Joe Hirsch. And then going back on, he ran, looking back on paper, he's ran his best races for Ramon. And I'm a student at everyone's style. I mean, I can just about mimic most anyone if I study it long enough. I know how they hold the reins. I can tell you what side of the mouth that they have their tongue on, and I can just about tell you everything. So I just try to ride him in kind of Ramon Dominguez style, the way he rode him in the Breeders' Cup when he wasn't on the lead, when he took him back, and the way Ramon holds his reins and the way he asks a horse to run and where he positions his body on a horse when he asks him to run. I just try to copy him. I didn't do quite as good a job as him, but I got close enough, and he ran well. Again, in saying that, though, he also came into the race probably better than he's been. looking better than he's been. I know Dale told me in the paddock that, man, I think I finally got him back now. So evidently he was going through a little bit of, just minor setbacks that was keeping him from actually running his best races. But when he told me that he thought he had him back where he had him last year, I felt that I felt confident enough that he was going to run well. Where that put us, I wasn't sure, but I knew he was going to run good.
Mike, you mentioned the name Ramon Dominguez, and for our fans who don't know, Ramon, one of the absolute top riders in New York over the past, 5 years or so, and really rose to the top of the sport. Injured in a spill in Aqueduct and with head injuries in January, announced his retirement this summer and won't ride again. From a standpoint of a fellow jock like that and one of the stars of the game, and that's what we're talking about tonight, can you talk about what you saw and what your feelings were with Ramon Dominguez from the time that the spill happened until he announced his retirement, and just how maybe it makes you introspect with yourself?
Well, I never saw a spill, and I didn't want to. It's something that I prefer not to see. I don't want to remember Ramon that way and watch him go down. The great thing about it, the whole thing, is that we have him here. He's healthy. He's fine. He's going to live a great life. He's going to be an ambassador to our sport. Whatever he decides or picks to do, he's going to be the best at it. He's just that way. That's just Ramon. He's just, he's second to none whenever it comes to anything. I mean, he really is. I mean, he works so hard to be the best he can possibly be. So I'm just glad that he's able to do that. And as far as, him not being there, it was devastating for all of us, all his fellow riders. I mean, couldn't imagine that happened to me, and I try not to. I just don't even try to think about it that way. I'm just glad that he's healthy and he's with his family and everything's okay.
Amen to that.